Hello everyone, this is Anime Octopus. Today's fanfic explores a darker, more emotional twist on the Naruto universe. What if Naruko discovered that she wasn't abandoned by fate, but by choice? What if the loneliness she endured wasn't the result of chaos or fear, but a deliberate decision made by those meant to protect her? How would that truth reshape her identity, her strength, and her view of the world that raised her? This story dives into betrayal, resilience, and the moment when innocence is replaced by painful clarity. Disclaimer. The content on this channel is created for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, let's begin. Naruko Namikaze and the first spark of chakra. To-san. To-san. I did it. Did you see that? Did you see? Naruko Namikaze bounced happily on her toes, her bright blue eyes sparkling with excitement. She was 8 years old, small for her age, and full of energy that never seemed to run out. Her long red hair swayed behind her, with soft golden tips that glimmered in the sunlight. She wore a simple red shirt and comfortable training pants, perfect for moving around freely. Minato Namikaze smiled warmly at his daughter. He knelt slightly so he could be at her eye level, his ocean blue eyes full of pride. I saw it, Naruko, he said gently. You focused your chakra very well. That takes patience, and you showed a lot of it today. Naruko beamed. She held her hands together and closed her eyes, carefully trying again. A faint, friendly warmth surrounded her palms, like a soft glow responding to her concentration. Just then, a familiar voice joined in. That was wonderful, Naruko-chan. Kushina Namikaze stepped into the training area, her red hair tied back neatly. She wore comfortable clothes suited for practice and smiled with unmistakable pride. She placed her hands on her hips and laughed softly. You've been practicing your breathing, haven't you? Naruko nodded eagerly. Yes, Mom. I remembered what you said, stay calm and believe in myself. Minato and Kushina exchanged a proud glance. Naruko was their child, and more than anything, she was kind, curious, and determined. She sometimes made mistakes, and sometimes she felt unsure, but she always tried again. That was what mattered most. After training, Naruko sat on the grass, sipping water and watching the clouds drift by. She thought about the future, not as something scary or overwhelming, but as something exciting. She didn't want to rush. She just wanted to learn, grow, and help others with a smile. Minato sat beside her. Being a kunoichi isn't about being the fastest or the strongest, he said calmly. It's about understanding yourself and caring for others. Naruko looked up at him and smiled. Then I'll do my best to become someone who helps everyone. Kushina laughed softly and ruffled Naruko's hair. And we'll be right here, cheering you on every step of the way. Naruko leaned back against the grass, feeling safe, supported, and hopeful. She didn't know exactly what her journey would be like, but she knew she would walk it with courage, kindness, and heart. And that was more than enough. Who dares disturb my slumber? Boomed a deep but calm voice. Naruko found herself standing in a wide, glowing space that felt like a dream. In front of her sat a giant fox with soft red fur and 9 flowing tails that shimmered like warm light. She froze, her heart fluttering with surprise, unsure what to say. The fox lowered its head slightly and gave a gentle chuckle. So, my young host has finally come to visit. Naruko blinked and tilted her head. Host? And? Who are you? Where am I? The fox smiled kindly. You are inside your inner world, Naruko. And I am the 9-tailed guardian spirit. Some call me the Kyuubi. Naruko's eyes widened. She had heard stories about the Kyuubi, but they always sounded scary and confusing. This fox, however, did not feel frightening at all. So you're inside me? She asked softly. Yes, the fox replied. But not in a harmful way. I exist to watch over you. Naruko relaxed a little. Are you going to hurt me? The fox shook its head. Never. I have seen your memories. You are kind, curious, and brave. You are your own person, Naruko. She felt warmth in her chest at those words. The fox continued, long ago, adults made complicated choices to protect the village. Some people misunderstood those choices and let their confusion turn into distance. That is why you sometimes feel alone. Naruko looked down, her fingers curling slightly. So, it's not because something is wrong with me? Not at all, the fox said firmly. You are not me, and I do not control you. You have your own heart, your own dreams, and your own path. Naruko looked up, eyes shining. Then I'll prove it. I'll grow stronger and help everyone smile again. The fox's tail swayed gently. That determination suits you. If you wish, I can guide you, teach you how to listen to your inner strength. Naruko grinned. I'd love that. But could we maybe make this place nicer? It feels a bit empty. The fox laughed warmly. Of course. The glowing space slowly transformed into a peaceful meadow beneath a bright sky. Flowers swayed in a gentle breeze. One more thing, the fox said. Kyubi is only a title. My true name is Yoko. Naruko smiled widely. Then it's nice to meet you, Yoko-sensei. As the meadow faded, Naruko felt herself waking up, her heart light and hopeful. She opened her eyes, still resting on her bed, knowing she was no longer alone, and that her journey had only just begun. End flashback. Naruko's quiet path of growth. From a very young age, Naruko chose a path of steady effort and self-improvement. Every day, she practiced with patience and determination, not because anyone demanded it, but because she wanted to grow into the best version of herself. Naruko trained either in her small room or in a peaceful, hidden practice area where she could focus without distractions. Because she was still growing, she followed a careful routine designed to strengthen her stamina and balance rather than lift heavy objects. Yoko, the gentle and wise chakra spirit within her, helped guide her safely. Each day, Naruko worked on simple exercises such as push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and crunches. She also spent time learning how to move her chakra smoothly and calmly, which was important because her chakra reserves were naturally very large for her age. At the time, her skills placed her around the level of a dedicated high Jinan who was steadily approaching Chunin ability. Her daily routine began modestly. At first, she did only 20 repetitions of each exercise. Over time, as her strength grew, she slowly increased the number. Eventually, she reached a routine of 100 push-ups and 100 crunches, followed by a short rest. Then she completed 100 pull-ups and 100 sit-ups. After that, she ran around the village 3 times at a relaxed but steady pace. Finally, she spent several hours calmly practicing chakra control exercises. She never rushed, never skipped steps, and never looked for shortcuts. As Naruko grew older, she became curious about sealing techniques, also known as fuinjutsu. She felt a natural connection to the subject and suspected it might run in her family. She began reading beginner books and scrolls, starting with simple seals such as storage seals. With patience and careful study, she successfully created a basic seal of her own. One day, she discovered a seal designed to gently increase gravity during training. The seal made movement feel heavier, helping the body grow stronger over time. When the seal was released, movement felt lighter and easier. With Yoko's guidance, Naruko safely practiced this technique in moderation, always making sure to rest and stay healthy. Yoko also encouraged Naruko to visit the village library and explore books about chakra techniques. While many scrolls were advanced, Naruko focused on learning fundamentals. One technique in particular caught her attention, a clone technique that allowed her to create chakra copies of herself. After careful reading and practice, she learned how to perform it responsibly. Later, Yoko explained an important secret of the technique. When a clone finished its task and disappeared, the knowledge it gained returned to Naruko. This discovery amazed her. It meant she could learn more efficiently, practicing skills like reading, meditation, and chakra control in creative ways. Although Naruko was often quiet and kept to herself, she was not completely alone. Some villagers did not understand her, and many children her age were unsure how to approach her, but Naruko chose not to let that define her heart. She remained kind, polite, and hopeful. Over time, several people noticed her gentle determination. Kurenai Yuhi, Anko Mitarashi, and Yugao Uzuki were among the first to treat Naruko with warmth and encouragement. They admired her dedication and offered friendly advice. Naruko cared about them deeply, even though she sometimes worried about causing them trouble simply by being near. One day, Uchiha Itachi noticed Naruko during her training. He quietly observed her focus and discipline and was impressed. When he finally spoke with her, he asked why she trained alone so often. Naruko answered honestly, saying she felt like she needed to rely on herself. Itachi understood more than he let on. From that day forward, he occasionally checked in on Naruko, offering calm guidance and thoughtful conversation. He saw her potential and respected her effort. Later, Uchiha Mikoto encountered Naruko walking peacefully through the village. She gently asked why Naruko was alone instead of with her family. Naruko gave the same quiet answer she always did. Mikoto, deeply caring by nature, felt a strong urge to protect and support the girl. She placed a comforting hand on Naruko's shoulder and promised that no child should ever feel invisible. Naruko never forgot that moment. Though her journey was not easy, Naruko continued forward with kindness, discipline, and hope. She believed that growth was not just about strength, but about learning to care for herself and others. Step by step, she walked her own path, quiet, steady, and full of promise. Flashback, 1 year ago. Uchiha Mikoto hurried into the Namikaze estate, gently but firmly holding the wrist of a small blonde-haired girl. Kushina Namikaze. Please come here right now. Mikoto called out, her voice sharp with worry rather than anger. Moments later, Kushina and Minato appeared at the front door. Both of them froze when they saw Mikoto standing there with their daughter. Mikoto? Why are you here? Kushina asked in surprise. And why is Naruko with you? I thought she was in her room. I found your daughter walking through the village all by herself, Mikoto replied, clearly upset. She shouldn't be wandering alone. Oh. Thank you so much, Mikoto-chan, Minato said quickly, kneeling beside Naruko. You can go back to your room now, sweetie. Naruko nodded and walked toward the hallway. However, she slowed her steps and quietly stayed close enough to hear the rest of the conversation. She noticed that Mikoto had not left yet. Did you even know she was outside? Mikoto asked, crossing her arms. No. But we truly appreciate you bringing her home, Kushina answered. Mikoto's gaze shifted toward the family training ground nearby. There, a red-haired girl was practicing movements with great focus. Why is Narumi training so early? Mikoto asked carefully, while Naruko is sent to her room. We decided to begin Narumi's training sooner, Minato replied. And Naruko? Mikoto asked, her tone growing colder. Kushina hesitated. Narumi carries a special power that she needs to learn how to understand. We plan to teach Naruko when she enters the academy. Mikoto was silent for a long moment. Her eyes were serious, but her voice softened. I understand. I'm sorry for asking, she said at last. The sudden change surprised both parents, but they didn't question it. Mikoto turned and walked away, still feeling uneasy. Flashback ends. After that day, Mikoto quietly did her best to support Naruko. She would sometimes prepare lunch for her, or offer gentle advice about studying and training. Mikoto had once been a skilled ninja herself before choosing a peaceful life with her family, and she shared what wisdom she could. She tried to help Naruko befriend her younger son, Sasuke, but he was already very proud and distant. He often spoke about how great the Uchiha family was, which left Naruko feeling discouraged. Still, Mikoto was grateful that her older son, Itachi, was kind to Naruko and treated her like a little sister. At home, Naruko's relationship with her own family slowly grew quieter. Her parents spent most of their time training Narumi, teaching her family techniques and special skills. Naruko often watched from a distance, hoping someone would notice her. She would suggest simple things, like going to see a movie together. Narumi would suggest eating ramen, and the family always followed Narumi's idea. After a while, Naruko stopped suggesting anything at all. Instead, she trained alone in her room. At dinner, she spoke very little. She finished her food, washed her own dishes, and returned to her room to read or practice. During family walks, she stayed a few steps behind everyone else. At gatherings, she would leave early, choosing quiet over crowds. Sometimes Narumi invited her to play, but Naruko would gently decline, saying she was busy. In her free time, Naruko loved reading stories, studying seals, and drawing peaceful pictures. When her parents weren't home, she practiced seal techniques on her own, determined to improve through patience and effort. One morning, Naruko finished her daily exercises and sat at her desk. She picked up a sheet of paper filled with careful notes and diagrams. Do you think this will work, Yoko-chan? She asked softly. We won't know until we try, Yoko replied warmly. But I believe in you. Yoko was a kind presence Naruko could speak to through a special connection. She listened, taught, and encouraged Naruko, helping her learn and grow with kindness rather than pressure. Over time, their bond became strong and comforting. One day, Yoko spoke with gentle excitement. Come into your mindscape today, she said. There's something special waiting for you. Naruko smiled, feeling hopeful. And for the first time in a long while, she felt like she truly belonged somewhere. Flashback, 2 years ago. Naruko stepped into her mindscape, a peaceful place that looked like a wide field of soft, green grass swaying gently in the breeze. The sky above shimmered like a painted dream. She took a deep breath and smiled, feeling calm and curious. As she walked forward, she noticed a large fox resting near the center of the field. The fox's fur glowed warmly, and her eyes sparkled with wisdom and kindness. "So, what's the surprise, Yoko-sensei?" Naruko asked, placing her hands on her hips with excitement. Yoko looked down at her with a playful smile. A gentle white light surrounded the fox, glowing brighter but never harsh. The light slowly shifted, changing shape like a cloud forming something new. When the glow faded, Naruko saw Yoko standing in a friendly human-like form. Yoko had long crimson hair tied neatly behind her, soft fox ears that twitched with emotion, and 9 flowing tails that moved like ribbons in the wind. She wore a beautiful crimson kimono decorated with flower petals, modest and elegant. Naruko stumbled back in surprise, not from fear, but amazement. "Whoa! You can do that?" Naruko asked, wide-eyed. Yoko laughed kindly. "Of course. It helps me understand the human world better, and teach you properly." Naruko nodded, clearly impressed. "I always knew you were special, but this is amazing." Yoko crossed her arms playfully. "You didn't think I'd only be one thing forever, did you?" Naruko grinned. "I guess not." The two shared a quiet laugh, the field glowing warmly around them. "Well," Naruko said after a moment, turning toward the edge of the field, "I should get going. Training won't do itself." Yoko pretended to pout. "You're always so focused." Naruko smiled over her shoulder. "That's because I have a great teacher." "Goodbye, Naruko-chan," Yoko said softly. "Bye, Yoko-sensei," Naruko replied. The grass shimmered as the memory faded. Back in the present, Naruko closed her notebook and stretched. "I guess it's back to training," she said to herself. After finishing her exercises, she took a quick shower, changed into her cozy nightgown, and brushed her teeth. Curling up in bed, she opened her calendar and looked at the date. "In 2 days, it's my birthday. And Narumi's too," she said with a gentle smile as she marked October 10th. With happy thoughts and new determination, Naruko turned off the light and drifted off to sleep. Hokage office. Minato Namikaze sat at his desk in the Hokage's office, quietly sorting through a tall stack of paperwork. This part of the job was his least favorite, but he did it anyway, because he cared deeply about the village and the people who lived there. One document in particular made him pause. It discussed villagers who had been placed under supervision for treating his daughter, Naruko, unfairly after the 9 Tails incident long ago. After the attack, Minato had explained to the village that Narumi carried the 9 Tails' great energy, while Naruko carried its spirit. Some villagers, frightened and confused, had responded poorly and forgotten the values of kindness and understanding that the village stood for. Minato sighed softly. As a father, he wanted to protect Naruko from every unkind word and every misunderstanding. As Hokage, he also had to help the village heal and learn. He chose the path of guidance rather than punishment, hoping people would grow kinder with time. With a steady hand, he signed the paper and set it aside. He leaned back in his chair, hoping with all his heart that Naruko would grow up knowing she was loved. He also hoped his wife and daughters would understand the difficult choices he had made. Just as he reached for the next stack of papers, Minato sensed a familiar presence. "Jiraiya," Minato said without looking up, "what brings you here?" Jiraiya laughed gently. "You always notice me, Minato." Minato smiled faintly. "I thought you might be off traveling." "I was," Jiraiya replied, "but the toads called me back. They shared something important." Minato looked up, surprised. "The toads?" Jiraiya nodded. "A prophecy. It speaks of a child born to 2 remarkable shinobi, someone who will grow through kindness, courage, and hope." Minato's expression softened as understanding dawned. "Narumi?" "That was my first thought," Jiraiya said, "but the prophecy speaks more of spirit than power. I believe it may be Naruko." Minato's eyes widened, then filled with pride. "Naruko? The chosen one?" "I believe so," Jiraiya said warmly. "And since tomorrow is Naruko and Narumi's birthday, I was hoping you'd allow Naruko to sign the Toad contract when the time is right." Minato nodded, smiling. "I'd be honored." With a friendly wave, Jiraiya departed, leaving Minato alone once more with his thoughts. As Minato continued working, his mind drifted to his family. He thought of Kushina's laughter, Narumi's bright energy, and then Naruko. Naruko had grown quieter over time. She no longer asked to go out together as a family. At meals, she spoke little, always polite, always distant. Minato realized how much he had missed. His heart tightened with regret. Tomorrow, He whispered to himself, "I'll do better." He promised that after the birthday celebration, he would begin training Naruko himself, not just as a shinobi, but as a father spending time with his daughter. He would bring her back into the warmth of the family, where she belonged. Namikaze Estate. Kushina Namikaze stood in the kitchen, preparing a special dinner filled with care and love. She hummed softly as she cooked, but her thoughts were heavy. She had noticed it too, how Naruko would quietly retreat to her room after school, how she spent so much time reading alone. Reading was wonderful, but Kushina wished Naruko would laugh more, play more, and feel more included. Kushina knew she had focused much of her attention on Narumi, helping her understand the powerful energy she carried. As someone who had once carried that same burden, Kushina wanted to protect Narumi. But now she realized that Naruko needed just as much care, just in a different way. Tonight's meal was Naruko's favorite, made with extra care. As she set the table, Kushina smiled with determination. "We'll be whole again," she said softly. "I promise." And with that promise, the warmth of family began to grow once more. In Konoha. "Naruko One-chan, where are you?" Narumi called out as she hurried through the village streets. School had just ended, and she wanted to walk home together, like they used to when they were younger. She checked the training field. Empty. She peeked near the academy gate. No sign of her. "Naruko One-chan." Narumi tried again, her voice hopeful. When no answer came, Narumi sighed and slowly began the walk home by herself. She cared deeply for Naruko, maybe more than she had ever shown properly. Narumi had always wanted Naruko to feel like she truly belonged, like family, not someone standing quietly on the sidelines. Yet somehow, she had failed at that. At the academy, Narumi often noticed Naruko sitting by herself, gazing out the window or doodling in her notebook. Naruko rarely spoke in class, and others didn't approach her either. They were usually too focused on Narumi, surrounding her with chatter and attention. Whenever Narumi finally managed to slip away to talk to Naruko, her sister had already left. As Narumi walked, memories surfaced, memories that made her heart ache. She remembered being younger and teasing Naruko without realizing how hurtful it was. She remembered choosing activities Naruko hadn't suggested, laughing without noticing Naruko's quiet disappointment. At the time, Narumi hadn't meant to be unkind. But intentions didn't erase feelings. "If I could talk to my younger self," Narumi whispered, "I'd tell her to do better." By the time she reached home, her steps felt steadier. Tomorrow was important. Tomorrow was her birthday, and Naruko's too. Narumi smiled softly. "I'll fix this," she said with quiet determination. Namikaze Estate. The warm scent of ramen filled the house. Kushina hummed cheerfully as she cooked, tying her apron tighter when she heard the front door open. "You're home early," she said, turning to see Minato removing his shoes. He smiled. "I thought I'd surprise you." He stepped into the kitchen, gave her a gentle kiss on the cheek, and then noticed her thoughtful expression. "Something on your mind?" he asked. Kushina hesitated before answering. "It's Naruko. I feel like she's been drifting away from us. Like she doesn't feel included." Minato nodded slowly. "I've noticed too." After a moment, he added, "After the birthday celebration tomorrow, I was thinking of spending more time training with her. Not for skills, just time together." Kushina's eyes brightened. She'd love that. Just then, the door opened again. "Ka-san." Narumi called out brightly. "Please make extra ramen today." She dashed down the hall to her room, full of energy. Kushina laughed softly. "That child." Then she paused. "Wait. Where's Naruko?" Minato glanced toward the hallway. "She'll be home soon." As if on cue, Naruko quietly entered the house. She moved gently, slipping off her shoes and heading toward her room without a sound. She didn't notice her parents watching. Naruko paused in the hallway and murmured to herself, "Tomorrow's another year already." Her tone wasn't sad, just thoughtful. Kushina stepped forward. "Naruko, dinner will be ready soon." Naruko turned, surprised, then nodded. "Okay." Dinner time. Naruko joined the family at the table, dressed in a simple black shirt and comfortable pants. Everyone waited until she sat down. That alone felt unusual. Narumi smiled at her. Kushina's eyes were warm. Minato nodded encouragingly. Naruko blinked. "This feels different." They began eating together. "So," Kushina asked gently, "how was your day?" Naruko paused, then answered honestly. "It was Quiet. Narumi leaned forward. What did you think of today's lesson? It was interesting, Naruko replied, offering a small smile. It wasn't much, but it was real. After dinner, Naruko stood to wash her bowl. I can do that, Kushina said quickly. Naruko shook her head politely. It's okay. I've got it. There was no bitterness in her voice, just independence. Later, Minato asked everyone to sit together in the living room. I wanted to tell you something, he said. After your birthday, Naruko, I'd like to start training with you. Just us. At your pace. Narumi's face lit up. Really? That means we can practice together. Naruko looked surprised. Thoughtful. Thank you, she said quietly. It wasn't excitement yet, but it was a step. That night, Naruko lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow would be a new beginning. Not perfect. Not instant. But possible. She smiled faintly. I'll give tomorrow a chance. And with that, she closed her eyes, ready to grow, together this time. After the difficult conversation with Naruko, the Namikaze family spent the evening quietly. The house felt heavier than usual, filled with thoughts that no one quite knew how to share. Minato did his best to comfort a tearful Kushina, while Narumi stayed close, worried that they might truly be losing their daughter and sister in spirit, even if she was still nearby. Eventually, the tears slowed, and the night grew late. Knowing the next day would be important, the family retreated to their rooms to rest. Minato and Kushina's room. Kushina's eyes were still red and puffy as she gently washed her face in the restroom. Minato stayed close, offering calm words and quiet reassurance. Once they finished their nightly routine, they lay down together, staring at the ceiling for a while before sleep finally came. Both of them were thinking about the same thing. How could they help Naruko feel like she truly belonged? Kushina's thoughts lingered the longest. She promised herself, silently, that she would do better. Narumi's room. Narumi cried softly into her pillow, letting out all the feelings she had been holding back. After a while, she wiped her tears and went through her own nightly routine. As she looked at her reflection, her sadness slowly turned into determination. I'll fix this, she whispered to herself. I'll make things right. With that promise in her heart, Narumi climbed into bed and drifted off to sleep, already thinking of ways to reconnect with her sister. The next morning, Naruko woke up feeling calmer than the night before. She was still upset, but today felt different. Today was her birthday, and Narumi's too. She sat at her desk for a moment, looking at a piece of paper where she had written down her thoughts and plans, then folded it carefully and tucked it away. The village was preparing for a big festival, which meant no school and lots of activity everywhere. Naruko planned to spend some quiet time training and thinking, away from the noise. She wanted clarity, not attention. After finishing her morning routine, she noticed the house was still quiet. Her parents and Narumi were asleep. Without waking anyone, she slipped outside and headed toward her favorite peaceful training spot. Even on her birthday, Naruko believed in working toward her goals. Meanwhile, an hour later, Narumi woke up bursting with excitement. It's our birthday, she said happily, jumping out of bed and running to her parents' room. To-san. Ka-san. Wake up. She called, gently shaking them. Minato smiled sleepily while Kushina laughed. All right, Minato said. Why don't you wake Naruko and then we can walk through the village and see the festival preparations together. Narumi nodded eagerly and ran down the hall. Outside Naruko's room. Narumi stopped in front of her sister's door. Her excitement faded into nervousness. She had never really been inside Naruko's room before, and she wasn't sure why that made her anxious. She raised her hand and knocked softly. Aniki? She called, using the nickname she'd always used, even though Naruko was her older sister. No answer. She knocked again. Still nothing. Narumi leaned closer, listening, but the room was silent. Her heart sank. Instead of opening the door, she turned and hurried back to the kitchen. In the kitchen. Kushina was preparing breakfast when Narumi entered, looking worried. What's wrong, Narumi? Kushina asked gently. Narumi looked up at her parents. Naruko isn't in her room. Minato blinked in surprise. Did you check inside? Narumi shook her head. I knocked, but she didn't answer. I was scared to go in. Minato knelt so he was eye level with her. Why are you scared? Narumi hesitated, then spoke honestly. Because I'm afraid that if I go in and she's really gone, it'll mean I waited too long to be a good sister. The room fell quiet. Kushina walked over and wrapped Narumi in a warm hug. She isn't gone, she said softly. And it's never too late to try. Minato nodded. Let's find her. Together. And for the first time that morning, Narumi felt hope bloom in her chest. Narumi hesitated, holding her hands together nervously. That's because I've never been into her room before, she said softly. I'm scared Aniki will be mad at me. Minato and Kushina exchanged surprised looks. They realized that they, too, had never really been inside Naruko's room. Naruko spent a lot of time there, and they had always assumed she had plenty to do, though they couldn't remember giving her anything special that would keep her occupied for hours. Kushina smiled gently. How about we all go to Naruko's room together? Would you like that, Narumi? Narumi nodded eagerly. The three of them walked down the hallway and stopped in front of Naruko's door. Minato slowly turned the handle and opened it. All three paused in quiet surprise. Naruko's room was very plain. The white walls were spotless, with no marks or decorations at all. Her bed was neatly made, showing that she wasn't there. The room was incredibly clean, cleaner even than Minato and Kushina's room. There were no clothes on the floor. Her clean clothes were folded carefully, and her worn ones were placed neatly in a basket beside her bed. Narumi frowned slightly. It's so empty. Minato and Kushina looked around and noticed a tall bookcase. It was filled with books, many of them quite advanced. Some even made Minato blink in surprise. The shelves held history books, stories, and thoughtful novels of many kinds. Naruko can read all of these? Minato asked quietly. Kushina and Narumi stayed silent, clearly amazed. As they continued looking, they noticed a small stack of paintings on Naruko's desk. Kushina picked them up carefully. Each painting showed beautiful scenes of nature, forests, rivers, skies painted with care and emotion. The artwork was gentle and detailed, far beyond what they expected. Two paintings stood out. The first showed 4 people, 2 adults and 2 children. One adult and one child had bright blonde hair, while the other adult and child had red hair. All 4 were smiling warmly. Minato recognized it instantly, it was their family. He turned the painting over. On the back was Naruko's signature. She had painted it when she was 6 years old. The title read, Family. Kushina felt her heart tighten, but she smiled softly. We'll do better, she whispered. They set the painting down and looked at the second one. It showed a blonde figure standing on a hill, gazing out over a peaceful lake surrounded by trees and mountains. The figure's face wasn't visible, but the scene felt hopeful. The title read, Rise from the Shadow. Before they could think more about it, there was a gentle knock at the door. They turned to see Naruko standing there. Her expression was calm but distant. Can I help you? She asked. Kushina quickly set the painting down. Sorry, Naruko. We were looking for you to tell you breakfast was ready. We also wanted to remind you to get ready, we're visiting the clan heads today. Naruko nodded. I understand. Please give me a moment to change. They stepped out, and Naruko quietly closed the door. She changed into gray pants and a dark gray shirt, placed her worn clothes into the laundry basket, and headed downstairs. She didn't notice the folded note still tucked in her pocket from earlier. After breakfast, the family walked through the village, admiring the colorful decorations being prepared for the upcoming festival. Soon after, they arrived at the Hyuga home, where the clan heads had gathered. Inside, children were talking and laughing. Hinata and Ino chatted together, while Shikamaru rested quietly. Choji enjoyed a snack, Kiba played with Akamaru, and Shino stood calmly nearby. Hyashi greeted Minato warmly at the door. Welcome. It's good to see you. Minato smiled. It's great to be here. After greetings, the adults moved off to talk, leaving the children together. Narumi turned to Naruko, determination shining in her eyes. Aniki, would you like to play with me and my friends? Naruko hesitated. Then she noticed Kushina glancing back at them with a hopeful smile. Naruko sighed softly and nodded. All right. Narumi beamed and gently pulled Naruko over to Hinata and Ino. The girls greeted Narumi happily and looked curiously at Naruko. Naruko offered a small nod in return. Soon, the 3 girls began chatting excitedly. Naruko listened for a moment, then closed her eyes and breathed slowly, enjoying the peaceful noise around her. Narumi noticed and smiled. She understood. Sometimes, just being together was enough. The clan heads walked together through the wide garden paths, smiling as they watched their children laugh and talk nearby. Minato walked alongside Hyashi, Shikaku, Choza, and Inoiki, discussing village matters and sharing light-hearted stories. Not far away, Kushina walked with the wives of the clan heads. Although she listened politely, most of her attention was focused on her daughter, Naruko. Naruko sat quietly beneath a tree, her eyes closed. At first, Kushina thought Naruko had fallen asleep, and her smile slowly faded. Naruko had not joined any games or conversations. A gentle ache filled Kushina's heart as worry crept in. She wondered if Naruko felt lonely. Kushina's thoughts grew heavy. She realized she had not always listened to her heart as a mother. Instead, she had focused too much on responsibilities and expectations, without noticing how much Naruko needed warmth and attention. This realization made Kushina determined to do better. By the time the sun reached its highest point, it was noon, and the Namikaze family prepared to leave so they could get ready for the birthday celebration and see the festival preparations in the village. Before leaving, Narumi finished chatting with Ino and Hinata. Curious and kind, they gently asked Naruko questions about her favorite books and games. Naruko answered politely, and soon the three of them were talking together. Naruko smiled softly, pretending everything felt normal, even though she still felt unsure inside. As the family walked through the village, people greeted the Hokage and his family with warm smiles. Naruko noticed some distant looks but chose to ignore them, focusing instead on walking beside Narumi. Kushina and Minato exchanged a quiet glance when they saw Naruko talking with her sister. She seems comfortable, Kushina thought hopefully. Maybe this is a new beginning, Minato thought as well. After an hour, Minato guided everyone back home so they could prepare for the birthday party. Once inside, Kushina smiled at her daughters. "Why don't you both clean up and change for the party?" she said gently. Naruko and Narumi nodded and went to their rooms. Kushina began preparing food, humming cheerfully, while Minato decorated the house. Using his special techniques, he finished quickly, filling the home with bright banners and warm lights. Narumi finished getting ready first and quietly checked on Naruko. She found her sister asleep, resting peacefully. Not wanting to disturb her, Narumi closed the door softly and went to help her father. Later that evening, at 6 o'clock, the party began. The Namikaze home filled with friendly voices and laughter. Families, children, and close friends gathered together. Among them were the clan heads and their families, the third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi, and Naruko and Narumi's godparents, Jiraiya and Tsunade. Several kind shinobi friends were there as well, including Kakashi, Kurenai, and Yugao. Narumi stood with her friends, Ino, Hinata, Sakura, Hanabi, and others from her class. Some boys like Shikamaru, Kiba, Choji, and Shino chatted nearby. Even so, Narumi kept glancing around, searching for Naruko. Naruko stood quietly near a window, watching the celebration. She observed the decorations, the laughter, and the games, trying to understand how everything fit together. She enjoyed the food and listened to the music, but mostly she watched, learning. After some time, Naruko decided to return to her room to rest. As she turned away, someone stepped gently in front of her. She looked up and saw Itachi, smiling kindly. "Hello, Naruko," Itachi said. "Hello, Itachi-san," Naruko replied politely. "I was just going to my room. I'm a little tired." Itachi nodded understandingly and reached into his pocket, taking out a small box. "This is for you," he said. "Happy birthday." Naruko's eyes widened in surprise. "For me?" she asked softly. She accepted the gift and opened it carefully. Inside was a neatly wrapped scroll. Naruko looked up at Itachi, curiosity shining in her eyes. "What is it?" she asked. Itachi's smile grew warmer. "It's something to help you discover your own strengths. Take your time with it." Naruko held the gift close, feeling something new stir inside her, hope. And for the first time that day, she smiled without pretending. "Just a couple of Katen techniques I managed to copy from the Uchiha archives. But don't tell anyone," Itachi said with a soft smile. Naruko smiled back warmly. To her, Itachi was more than a mentor, he felt like an older brother who believed in her when she doubted herself. She thanked him sincerely, gave him a gentle hug, and excused herself so she could return to her room. Inside her room, Naruko quietly prepared for her journey. She carefully checked her backpack, making sure she had everything she needed. Inside were storage scrolls holding food, cooking supplies, and helpful survival tools. She also packed training tools meant only for self-defense and practice. Extra clothes were neatly folded, 2 shirts, 1 gray and 1 black, along with black pants suitable for travel. At the very bottom of her pack was the special scroll Itachi had given her. Once everything was packed, Naruko slipped on her shoes and opened the window. She paused and looked around her room one last time. Her eyes drifted to her desk, where a stack of her artwork rested. 2 paintings stood out, the ones her family had admired earlier that day. She gently picked up one of the paintings and sealed it carefully into a scroll. The other one she folded and tucked away, deciding to leave it behind as a quiet memory. With one last deep breath, Naruko climbed out the window and softly landed outside. The village was still glowing with celebration. Lanterns lit the streets, and cheerful music filled the air. Children laughed as they played games together, while families chatted happily nearby. Naruko moved carefully through the crowd, making sure not to draw attention to herself. Her home was far from the main gate, which meant she had a long way to go. Because of the celebration, only one gate was open, and she had to take winding paths to avoid being noticed. It took her a long time, and she sighed quietly, knowing she still had a long journey ahead. Namikaze House. 1 hour after Naruko left. The time was growing later, but the celebration was still lively. Songs echoed from the living room as guests enjoyed the cheerful atmosphere. Children ran through the house, laughing and sharing stories. Minato gently raised his hand to quiet everyone down. "Now then," he said warmly, "it's time for Narumi to open her presents." Narumi's face lit up with excitement. Earlier, she had been a little sad because she hadn't seen her older sister Naruko, but the thought of gifts quickly lifted her spirits. Jiraiya stepped forward first, holding a large scroll. Many of the adults smiled knowingly. "Narumi," Jiraiya said proudly, "I want to give you the toad summoning contract." Narumi's eyes widened. She had heard stories about summoning from her parents and dreamed of following in her father's footsteps. She bounced happily as everyone laughed kindly. With guidance, Narumi carefully signed her name on the scroll. Minato smiled and told her they would train together when she was ready. More gifts followed, clothes, toys, and thoughtful presents from friends and village leaders. Kushina gave Narumi a wooden practice sword and promised to teach her their family's gentle training style. Minato added a few of his special tools, explaining they were for learning and responsibility. Mikoto watched quietly, her smile fading just a little. She had brought a gift for Naruko as well, a handmade fox costume and a warm black coat. She had searched for Naruko earlier, but Itachi had told her Naruko was resting. After the presents were opened, Narumi suddenly looked around. "Where's Naruko One-chan?" she asked. The room grew quiet. Minato and Kushina exchanged worried glances. They hadn't seen Naruko in a while either. Friends who cared deeply for Naruko felt concern stir in their hearts. "She went to her room to rest," Minato said gently, trusting the message Itachi had shared earlier. Everyone nodded, though Narumi still looked thoughtful. Mikoto, however, felt uneasy. Quietly, she stepped away from the celebration and headed toward Naruko's room, hoping to leave her gift and check on her. When she opened the door, the room was empty. The light revealed a neatly packed space, and a feeling that something was wrong. As Mikoto looked around, she noticed a folded piece of paper peeking out from Naruko's belongings. She carefully unfolded it and read. Her eyes widened with concern. Mikoto hurried back to the gathering, her heart racing. She quickly found Minato and Kushina among the guests. "What's wrong, Mikoto?" Minato asked, immediately alert. "It's Naruko," Mikoto said, her voice trembling with worry. Kushina stepped forward, eyes filled with concern. "What about our Naruko?" "A new path for Naruko. Naruko is leaving the village," Mikoto cried out, her voice carrying across the joyful celebration. Music faded, laughter paused, and everyone turned toward her in surprise. Kushina and Minato froze. "What do you mean she's leaving the village?" Minato asked, his voice tight with worry. "I went to Naruko's room to give her my gift," Mikoto explained gently. "She wasn't there. Instead, I found this letter tucked near her window." She handed the folded paper to Kushina and Minato. They read it together. When they finished, Kushina's hands trembled. Tears welled up in her eyes. "She thinks we don't care," Kushina whispered, her voice breaking. "She thinks we never forgave ourselves." Nearby, young Narumi had heard everything. She ran to her parents, her eyes wide with fear. "To-san. Is One-chan really gone?" she asked softly. Minato couldn't answer. He turned away, and that silence told Narumi everything. She began to cry, and Minato felt his heart ache. Then his eyes sharpened with resolve. "Anbu," Minato called. Several masked protectors appeared, kneeling respectfully. Please help find my daughter Naruko, Minato said calmly but firmly. Make sure she doesn't leave the village grounds alone. I want to speak with her. The Anbu nodded and disappeared to help. Soon, trusted friends gathered, Jiraiya, Kakashi, and the village leaders. Everyone agreed on one thing: Naruko mattered. Minato prepared to go when Kushina stepped forward. I'm coming too, she said. Kushina, Minato replied gently, please stay with Narumi. I promise I'll bring Naruko home. Before Kushina could argue, Mikado placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Go, Mikado said kindly. I'll watch the children. Kushina nodded, grateful. Thank you. With that, she hurried off to search. Outside the village. Naruko stood just beyond the village path, the lantern lights glowing softly behind her. She took a deep breath. I made it, she said quietly. You did well, said Yoko, the gentle guiding voice that always encouraged her. But remember, this land still cares about you. Naruko nodded. She felt tired but hopeful. As she moved through the trees, she sensed familiar presences, not threatening, but concerned. She paused and stepped into the open. Ahead stood Jiraiya, Kakashi, and Itachi. Naruko, Jiraiya said kindly, please come home. Naruko looked at them calmly. Why? Because your family loves you, Kakashi added. They want to grow together. Naruko clenched her hands, not in anger, but in pain. I didn't feel like family, she said honestly. I felt invisible. Silence followed. Jiraiya stepped forward. Sometimes adults make mistakes. Big ones. But running away doesn't mean you stop belonging. Naruko thought carefully. Then she smiled faintly. I'm not running away, she said. I'm learning who I am. She placed her hands together and released a gentle burst of glowing blue light, not to harm, but to create space. The light faded, and Naruko had already moved deeper into the forest path, light on her feet, heart steady. She wasn't lost. She was growing. And somewhere behind her, those who loved her were already learning how to do better. A gentle turning point. Naruko slipped quietly through the village path, her heart racing with hope and uncertainty. She believed that if she kept moving forward, she might finally discover a place where she could grow and feel understood. Unseen by her, Itachi watched from a distance. He cared deeply for Naruko, seeing her as a little sister who deserved kindness and encouragement. When she suddenly picked up speed, Itachi followed carefully, masking his presence and stepping ahead of her path. When Naruko stopped, surprised to see him standing there, Itachi felt a swirl of emotions. He respected the village's rules, but more than that, he wanted Naruko to be safe and happy. Please, Itachi-ni, Naruko said softly. Let me go. He studied her eyes and saw not fear, but determination. She had grown stronger, not just in skill, but in spirit. It's not easy outside the village, Itachi said gently. Are you sure you'll be all right? I've been learning, Naruko replied. I read books, practiced, and learned how to take care of myself. I won't rush into trouble. I promise. Itachi sighed, knowing she had already made up her mind. From his pocket, he took out a special tool once crafted by her father, a symbol of protection and trust. Keep this, he said. If you ever feel lost or scared, remember that you're not alone. Naruko accepted it carefully and hugged him. He returned the hug, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Go now, Itachi said. Follow your path. Moments later, other shinobi arrived, asking questions. Itachi calmly pointed them in a different direction, giving Naruko the time she needed. As Naruko continued onward, she felt grateful and hopeful. Then suddenly, a familiar voice called her name. Naruko. She stopped. Standing before her was her mother, Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. Her expression was full of worry, not anger. Why are you leaving? Kushina asked gently. Did we do something wrong? Naruko hesitated, then finally spoke from her heart. I tried for so long to feel like part of the family, she said. I wanted us to spend time together, to learn together. But I always felt like I was being asked to wait. And wait. And wait. Kushina listened, tears forming in her eyes as memories returned, moments she had overlooked. We never meant to make you feel unseen, Kushina said softly. We thought we were doing what was best. I know, Naruko replied. But I needed guidance too. I needed encouragement. I didn't want to feel invisible. Kushina knelt down and held Naruko's hands. I'm sorry, she said sincerely. I should have listened more. Naruko took a deep breath. I need to discover who I am. I need space to grow. Kushina nodded slowly, understanding at last. Wherever you go, she said, remember that you are loved. Naruko smiled, a small but real smile. I will, she said. And with that, she turned toward her future, carrying not anger, but clarity. Not sadness, but hope. Are you kidding me? You don't understand. Just because I carry the QB soul, everyone thinks it changes who I am. They think I'm dangerous, that I'll hurt them. Naruko's voice trembled, but she stood tall, her fists clenched in frustration. Her face was flushed with a mix of anger and hurt. Kushina sat quietly, taking in Naruko's words. Her heart ached as she listened, her eyes beginning to swell with tears. And you know what makes it worse? Naruko continued, her voice quivering but firm. Even Minato. He let them treat me like that. He didn't stop it. He used me as a scapegoat for their fear and sadness about the QB attack. Kushina's breath caught. She had trusted Minato to always know the right thing to do. She had believed in him without question. But hearing Naruko say this made her world feel unsteady. I can't forget what happened, Naruko admitted, her voice breaking. The hurt. It's too much, and I can't just pretend it didn't happen. Kushina's mind raced. She remembered all the times she had unknowingly overlooked Naruko's feelings, all the moments when Naruko had asked for guidance or support and she had followed Minato's lead instead of listening to her child's heart. She remembered encouraging Naruko to be patient, to wait until the right time to train or to speak up, never realizing how much Naruko was struggling inside. She felt a deep shame. She had idolized Minato, thinking he could do no wrong, never questioning his decisions. And now, seeing Naruko's pain, she realized how much she had missed, the little cries for help that she had brushed off. Kushina's thoughts swirled as she tried to process the truth in Naruko's words. She wanted to deny it, to tell herself it wasn't real, but deep down she knew her daughter had suffered. By the time Kushina's mind returned to the present, it was too late. Naruko had taken a deep breath and said softly, "Goodbye, Ka-san," before stepping away, determination shining in her eyes. Kushina could only sit there, tears streaming down her face, feeling a mixture of sorrow and hope. She knew Naruko was strong and brave, and that this journey, though painful, would shape her into a wise and compassionate leader. Though Naruko left Konoha to find her own path, Kushina understood something important: her daughter's story was far from over. Naruko would grow, learn, and shine, and one day, they would be reunited as stronger, wiser hearts, mother and daughter, bound by love, understanding, and forgiveness. Forest of High no Kuni. Naruko was carefully walking through the dense forest of High no Kuni. The moonlight barely peeked through the tall trees, casting long shadows across the forest floor. She kept a small kunai tucked in her belt, just in case she needed it, not because she expected trouble, but because it made her feel a little braver. It was past midnight, and she had been walking for over 2 hours since her conversation with Kushina. That talk had left her feeling a mix of relief and uncertainty. Finally, she had shared what had been weighing on her heart, but she couldn't forget the look of shock on Kushina's face. It seemed she hadn't known about any of it. That didn't mean forgiveness would come easily. If Kushina wanted to be forgiven, she would have to earn it. That is, if Naruko ever saw her again. Naruko-chan, you should find somewhere safe to rest. A small cave or a hidden spot by the river might work, Yoko's voice whispered in her mind, calm and steady. Naruko nodded silently, letting the forest guide her steps. 30 minutes later, she found a small cave tucked behind a cluster of rocks by a gently flowing river. She settled inside and opened her backpack. Pulling out a storage scroll, she unrolled it, and a sleeping bag neatly appeared. She thought about making a fire but shook her head. Being in High no Kuni, a fire might attract unwanted attention. Minutes later, she snuggled into her sleeping bag, eyes heavy with fatigue. "Good night, Yoko-chan," Naruko whispered in her mind. "Good night, Naruko-chan," Yoko replied softly. Naruko drifted into sleep, already planning for tomorrow's journey. She didn't hear Yoko's quiet, tired sigh as she finished her own thoughts. "I hope Naruko finds a sensei soon," Yoko whispered to herself, panting softly from the exhaustion of guiding her. "Somewhere between Mizu no Kuni and Kaminari no Kuni. There's a small village. Strong people, kind people. Maybe she'll find someone to help her there." Next morning. Naruko woke up early, the first rays of sunlight just brushing the horizon. It was 5 in the morning, and the forest was still draped in soft, golden mist. She carefully rolled up her sleeping bag, storing it back into her scroll, and unrolled a map. While making a small breakfast, she studied the map. Where should I go from here? She asked herself aloud. Naruko-chan, Yoko said in her mind, her tone gentle but firm, try heading to the island between Mizu no Kuni and Kaminari no Kuni. There's a small village there, neutral from all the hidden villages. I lived there once, a long time ago. The villagers are strong, kind, and wise. Maybe you'll find a sensei there. Naruko nodded thoughtfully. Yoko's words sounded convincing, and for now, Naruko didn't suspect anything unusual. But Yoko knew she couldn't keep her own fatigue hidden forever. She didn't want Naruko to worry. Okay, Yoko-chan, but how would I get there? Naruko asked, frowning as she traced the path on the map. I need a boat, but I don't have any money. You can hide in one of the crates that ships use to deliver supplies to the island, Yoko suggested. Naruko sighed, thinking over the idea. It wasn't perfect, but it could work. So, how do I get to the dock? She asked herself, peering at the map. After about 10 minutes of careful planning, she figured it would take her roughly 2 hours of walking to reach the nearest dock at the edge of Hai no Kuni. From there, she hoped the boat would take her directly to the island Yoko had mentioned. It might take more than one trip, but she felt determined. She let out a small breath. I hope this place Yoko-chan told me about is worth it, she thought. Finishing her breakfast, Naruko packed her things carefully, tucked her map back into her bag, and began walking toward the dock, the first light of day guiding her forward. 2 days later, it was the afternoon, and Naruko was at the dock. She noticed a person stacking supplies on a small ship. It seemed there was only one person loading the boat. Naruko studied him carefully. He had short, flat light blue hair, stood tall at about 6 feet 1 inch, and looked to be in his mid-20s. His outfit reminded her of shinobi clothing, a black coat, black combat pants, and sturdy sandals. He wore sunglasses that looked cooler than any she had seen before, and black fingerless gloves covered his hands. Curious, Naruko decided to ask him a question. Excuse me, sir, she called politely. The man paused and looked down at her. What can I do for you, kid? Where are your parents? He asked, surprised to see a young girl alone.
I accidentally ended up on a ship last week, and now I'm here.
I think my parents might be worried about me, Naruko explained. I was wondering if this ship is going to the island up ahead. It's the farthest one from here. The worker studied her for a moment, then smiled warmly. Sure, kid. This ship actually has supplies heading that way anyway. You can tag along. Naruko's face lit up. Thank you, kind sir, she said gratefully. No problem, the man replied, returning to his work. Just need to load a few more things, and we'll be off in about an hour. While waiting, Naruko looked around the dock and thought about her journey over the past 2 days. The trip had been surprisingly smooth. She hadn't encountered any dangerous bandits, only one weak one, who she scared off with a well-aimed kunai. She had spent most of her time talking with Yoko, the only person she had to keep her company. Lately, though, she noticed Yoko's voice was softer, almost tired. Whenever Naruko asked about it, Yoko insisted nothing was wrong, though Naruko had a hunch she was hiding something. Hey, Naruko, Yoko asked one afternoon. Why didn't you follow the plan I suggested? That's because if I get caught, I might get kicked off the next island, Naruko replied. And I don't want to hide on ships or stay crouching in one spot for days. By the time the hour had passed, the worker had finished loading the supplies. All right, kid. Let's go, he said. Naruko ran up excitedly. Wait. What's your name? She asked. I'm Sing Barong, he replied. Naruko nodded, impressed. She quickly hopped onto the boat, and moments later, Sing joined her. How long do you think it will take to get there? Naruko asked curiously. Since we're going straight, probably 3 days, Sing said with a smile. Naruko blinked, surprised. She had expected to visit other islands first. Don't you have to drop supplies at the other islands? She asked. Nope. These supplies go directly to the farthest island, Sing answered, chuckling. Naruko could only nod, a little dumbfounded. As they sailed, Sing tried to make conversation. So, Naruko, who are your parents? I actually live on that island, I might even know them. Naruko froze for a moment, then quickly said, they're Riku and Miki Sato. She hoped Sing would accept her answer. Sing raised an eyebrow behind his sunglasses but didn't push it. Oh really? I know them. Haven't talked to them in a while. Didn't know they had a child. Naruko exhaled quietly, relieved. The rest of the trip passed with casual conversation, and Naruko found herself enjoying Sing's company. She started to feel a little like he was a guardian figure, and Sing, for his part, found himself curious about her life and impressed by her determination. After 3 days, the boat reached the small village. Naruko's eyes widened in surprise. The village was tiny, probably the smallest she had ever seen, with only about 30 residents. The villagers greeted her with warm smiles, and she returned them, feeling welcomed. "Where's your home? I can take you there," Sing offered. Naruko hesitated. "It's okay. I can get there myself. You should focus on the supplies," she replied. "All right, be safe," Sing said, smiling and waving. Naruko waved back before setting off into the village. She wanted to find someone strong to train her. As she walked, the village became smaller, and soon she reached a darker, deserted area. The houses were run down, some broken, with debris scattered along the road. "What happened here?" Naruko asked, stopping and closing her eyes to speak with Yoko.
I don't know, Naruko-kun, Yoko replied softly, her voice almost whispering with exhaustion.
"Last time I remember, this place was full of life. Now." Naruko's brow furrowed. Something was clearly wrong, and she could sense Yoko's worry. "Are you okay, Yoko-chan?" Naruko asked gently. "I'm fine, Naruko. Don't worry about me," Yoko said gently, then paused. "But be careful. I feel a very large chakra nearby." Naruko opened her eyes, sensing it too. Before she could speak, she felt a calm, steady hand rest on her shoulder. "This place was once full of laughter," a familiar voice said warmly. "Families, children, and travelers all shared their knowledge here. Long ago, a powerful storm scattered everyone, and the village slowly faded into history." Naruko listened closely as the voice continued. "The people here protected wisdom about chakra, teamwork, and balance. They believed power should always be guided by kindness." Naruko turned around, surprised. "Sing? What are you doing here?" Sing smiled kindly. "I could ask you the same." Then he added, "Naruko, there's something important you should know." Naruko blinked. "About me?" Sing nodded. "I sensed your determination. Your heart is strong, even when things are difficult. That's rare." Naruko looked down, unsure. "You're not going to take me back to my family, are you?" "No," Sing said gently. "I came to offer you a choice." Her eyes widened. "A choice?" "I want to teach you," Sing said. "The lessons of this village, how to understand chakra, how to grow stronger without losing kindness, and how to believe in yourself." Naruko's face lit up. "But how? I thought all that knowledge was lost." Sing reached into his pack and carefully unrolled an old scroll. On it were simple symbols glowing softly. "This is the legacy of my family," he said. "I'm the last one who remembers these teachings. And I believe you're meant to carry them forward." Naruko felt her heart race, not with fear, but excitement. "You really think I can?" "I know you can," Sing replied. Naruko smiled brightly. "Then yes. I want to learn." Sing chuckled. "Good. But first, there's something important." He noticed Yoko growing tired and knelt beside her. "She's been using her energy to protect others for a long time. She just needs balance." Naruko hurried to Yoko's side. "Yoko-chan, are you okay?" Yoko smiled weakly. "I'm all right. Just tired." Sing placed his hands together and spoke softly. A warm, gentle light surrounded Yoko, like sunlight through leaves. "This will help her energy and spirit work together again," Sing explained. "No one is in danger." Slowly, Yoko's breathing steadied, and she opened her eyes fully. "Naruko," she said, smiling, "I'm okay." Naruko's eyes filled with happy tears as she hugged her friend. "I'm so glad." Yoko laughed softly. "I'll always be connected to you. Even if our paths change, our friendship won't." Naruko nodded firmly. "Then I'll grow strong. Strong enough to protect everyone." Sing watched them with pride. "That," he said, "is exactly the kind of strength this village believed in." And beneath the quiet sky, a new chapter quietly began, one filled with learning, friendship, and hope. Naruko nodded slowly, determination sparkling in her bright blue eyes as she looked at Yoko. "Don't worry, Yoko-chan," she said firmly. "Once my training is complete, I'll come and set you free. That's a promise." Yoko smiled warmly at her. "I'll be waiting for you, Naruko-kun," she replied. Then, in a flash of shimmering light, Her spirit floated gently toward the sky, heading in the direction of Konoha. Naruko took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She turned to Yue, her mentor, who stood patiently nearby. "All right then, Naruko. Are you ready for the ritual?" he asked, his tone calm but serious. "Yes. I'm ready," Naruko said with a confident nod. She wanted to complete this part of her journey so she could begin her true training. Yue gave her a reassuring smile. "You're certain? This ritual will change your energy entirely. You won't be quite the same as before." Naruko grinned. "I already said yes. Let's get started." Yue guided Naruko through the ritual carefully. She focused, letting the magic of the ancient seals flow over her. A bright warmth spread through her, swirling around her arms and chest. It was strange and new, but it filled her with a feeling of power she had never known. Her energy shifted and grew, expanding within her, making her feel strong and capable. After a while, the warmth settled, and Naruko felt a peaceful clarity. Her breathing slowed, and her body felt lighter, more alive. When she opened her eyes, she noticed her hair had transformed from bright yellow to a shimmering, silvery blue, yet it retained its wild, spiky shape. She stood a little taller, feeling stronger and more confident than ever before.
I feel amazing," Naruko exclaimed, marveling at her new energy.
Yue chuckled. "So, Naruko, do you like this new version of yourself?" Naruko nodded eagerly. "Yes. Can I ask you something?" "Of course," Yue said. "Does this mean you'll be my mentor forever?" Naruko asked, smiling brightly. Yue's eyes softened. "If that's what you wish, yes. But first, you should know my real name." Naruko tilted her head, curious. "My name is Yue Barong. I traveled far and wide, learning everything I could, until I found a worthy apprentice. That's you, Naruko. You are my first student, and I'll guide you to become the strongest you can be." Naruko's eyes widened. "Wow. Really? I'm your first apprentice?" Yue nodded. "Yes, and we have much work to do. Your training will be challenging, but I know you're ready." Naruko grinned. "Then let's start. I'm ready for anything." Yue laughed softly, a spark of pride in his eyes. "Good. Follow me. The mountains await, and there you'll learn the skills you need to protect your friends, your village, and yourself." With that, Naruko and Yue set off toward the distant peaks, ready to begin a journey filled with growth, adventure, and the kind of courage only a true hero could possess. Dear YouTube family, this is all for now. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Your support makes all the difference. Thank you for being part of this journey. Warm regards. Anime Octopus.